Talk about the real reason you're behind. Happy Sunday, happy Sunday, happy Sunday. It is Coach Lee, your productivity and accountability coach, here for another Sunday of the Success Starter series. You know we're here to dive in to talk about how I can help you to create systems that work with your life, career, and business, no matter how busy you are, because it's all about systems and structure over motivation and hustle. And this is all about creating things that work for you. And so as we dive in today and as we talk about the real reason that you're behind, and not just behind today, but like why you behind every single week, ouch, let's have a conversation about that. Like why are you behind? Because you're blaming one thing, but the reality is that it's something else. Let's go ahead and take laziness off the table. You're not behind because you're lazy. You're not behind because you don't really know what to do. The reason you really feel behind is because you look at your calendar, and your calendar rewards urgency. Your calendar doesn't actually reward the results. Because when you look at your calendar is telling you where you need to be. And most calendar notifications go off 10 to 15 minutes in advance of the appointment. And so that's rewarding urgency, because that's saying, hey, now I need you to go do this thing. And don't let the thing involve driving, and you didn't include drive time on said calendar. But you don't really realize, and maybe you do, but you never really thought about it. Your calendar are appointments. Most of your appointments and the things on your calendar involve other people. There are things that need your time, things that need your energy, things that need your capacity. They are things that need you. But where on your calendar is you? Where on your calendar is the time to do the work? Where on the calendar are those things? And so you might think that based off of all the things that are on your calendar, all this different activity, that means that progress is being made. But it doesn't necessarily mean that. Because just because there are things that are on your calendar doesn't mean that actual progress is being made on any of those things. Because the more things that are on your calendar, the busier that you are. But busyness, while it keeps you occupied, it keeps you tied up in meetings, tied up in court, tied up with this, that, and the other. Busyness doesn't equal productivity. So when you say that you're busy, that doesn't automatically mean that you're productive. Because being busy isn't effective when it comes to you actually getting things done. And that's why your calendar is rewarding this sense of urgency, this do, as opposed to the output, the outcome. And what can be done to change that? What can be done to shift that? Well, first we have to understand and really identify the fact that everything is not a priority. Because when you think that everything is a priority, nothing actually moves. You stay busy, not productive. And so when you have all these things to do, you have this to-do list, you have this list of tasks, you have these things that you need to do. And all the things feel important for whatever reason. They can't all be of equal importance. Now, when you're ranking them in order of priority, you can rank them in order of priority, but everything can't be in the number 1 spot. Everything can't be in the number 2 spot. It's not possible. And so when we really start looking at and thinking about life, i.e. your to-do list, from this standpoint, we have to understand that you have to decide what's the priority. You can't try to put everything in the number 1 spot. You can't try to put everything in the number 3 spot. You can't put everything in the number 10 spot. Because if everything is in the number 10 spot saying it's not really that important, why is it even on the list? If everything is on the number 1 spot saying that everything is a priority, how do we get there? Because they all didn't just pop up at the same time. How do we suddenly get to the place that between 1 and 10, or whatever number we're talking about here, but I'm just using 1 through 10. How do we get from between 1 and 10, everything suddenly being number 1? You didn't make a decision. If everything is truly a number 1 top tier priority, must get done today, life or death decision, you dropped the ball. Because in order for everything to now be a number 1 top priority, must get done, you didn't make decisions in the past. Because like I said, all 10 of those things didn't come out of nowhere. all 10 of those things then suddenly pop up today. And because of that, that means that you didn't decide in the past that they were number one priorities, and now they're all, supposedly, these number one priorities. And because of that, you're not even sure where to start amongst these 10 items. That's where the ranking comes into play. But if you're going to continue to say that everything is a priority, nothing's going to get done. Because you're going to be stuck in indecision. You're going to be stuck in analysis paralysis. You're going to be stuck sitting still, not moving, not taking action because you don't know what to do. Because of your lack of decision making and deciding where is the priority really in this list, in these things, you're doing nothing. And if you keep doing nothing, well, number one, you're not gonna make no progress, and it's just gonna get worse. But if you decide instead to focus, to commit to one thing, to commit to everything is a priority and just choosing one, pick it out the hat, close your eyes, roll down the list, whatever you need to do, you choose, you make a decision. Your decision to focus on one task comes with structure. And I know we have, and I'm not saying that people don't have this diagnosis, these ADD, ADHD diagnosis, especially these adults now suddenly having these diagnoses. And I'm not saying that you don't have the ability to focus. But really what I really think, and I ain't no doctor, so this ain't no scientifically backed thing, is that because of the microwave society that we live in, because of all these things that are coming at us demanding our attention, we have cultivated within ourselves this inability or this lack of focus. And I'm not saying that people aren't on the spectrum in the sense of their ability to focus, but if we stop trying to make focus a personality trait that you lack or you don't have to, just like people who say, I'm really good at procrastinating. You've just told yourself that for so long. Concentration and focus is something that you can do. When you really want to focus on something, you can. And so that's what I mean by it's a choice. And I get that there are situations where it might not be as easy, but if we decide that we're going to focus, we're going to ultimately create an environment that is conducive to focusing. How do we do that, and what does that look like? It's going to vary for each and every one of us, and it might look a little differently, and that's fine. But we have to decide that I want to focus. And so in you deciding that you're going to focus on this one thing, then you've declared and decided what the priority is, which means at this point, you're going to make progress and things are going to move, as opposed to you being in that analysis paralysis, stagnation place to where you're doing nothing. And what I want you to understand is that when you start planning for results, i.e., even if we take it that step back and say the decision to focus, the decision to commit to one thing, you're able to plan for the results that you say that you want. And so when it comes to being effective women plan. And not only do they plan, but they plan for the results that they want to have. And now in order to get these results, yes, there's going to be effort, but they're not planning for the effort it's going to take. They're deciding that I want this goal. This is the goal that I'm pursuing. This is the thing that I'm going after. Whatever I have to do to get there, I'm going to do to get there. And so when we start setting up life in that way, to where when I decide that I'm going to do something, when I commit to doing something, when I fill in the blank something, when you make that decision, then that also goes to this idea of focus helping to create structure. Because once you decide the end result, once you decide that this is what you want, you have to essentially reverse engineer to create the game plan. And so by deciding that this is the result that I want this thing, I'm doing this thing, I'm pursuing and going after this thing. Now we have to create this system and this structure that's going to tell you exactly what it is you need to do to get there. But just as much as it's telling you what to do, it's also telling you what not to do. Because if you want this result, you can't do these things that aren't going to help you get those results. You have to do more of the things that's going to help you get there and less of the things that aren't going to help you get there. And so instead of having these constant and endless to-do lists, and I get it. I'm a list person. I love me a good to-do list. I got lists on top of lists. but they're still categorized. By having endless run-on lists with no structure, you end up in that situation to where everything is a priority and nothing gets done because there's analysis paralysis and stagnation because you're not sure where to start and you're not sure what to do first. But if instead of these endless to-do lists, we have these organized and systematized lists that kind of rank and prioritize what needs to be done, then you're able to create these systems, these pockets, or even these rhythms, honestly, that allows you to work in these different silos. Like, I'm going to work on this, and this thing involves these tasks. I'm going to work on this, and this involves these tasks. And when we start creating life in that way and looking at life through these different lenses, I'm sure you've heard people talk about the buckets. Like, we have these different buckets in life that we need to fill, life, career, family, relationships, faith, finance, whatever your buckets might be. But if we all have these different buckets, that's essentially these different silos into which we need to pour. And so if you look at and think about the fact that in life, we have these different buckets that we need to show up in, pour into, and be a part of, what does that look like on the back end? Because in order to show up and be a part of these different aspects of life and these different silos and these different buckets, you had to have decided that I'm going to show up. You had to have decided that you were going to take action. You had to have decided that I want this for life. And in deciding that, you're committing in some way, in some shape or form, to doing it. And that's why if you keep just staying busy without having a focus, you're not going to be productive because that busyness is not effective. And so we have to start creating and structuring our lives in that way. And so the real reason that you feel behind every week is because you're going with the flow. You're going with the flow of your calendar instead of dictating to your calendar what it is you're going to need to do. You're not operating as the CEO of your life and creating time blocks or do not schedule periods or whatever the case may be. Or even if we're going to use the calendar, for example, and we're going to let the calendar guide us, how are you going to then, in letting the calendar guide you, then create these pockets? And what I mean by that is, every Friday we make our to-do list for the upcoming week in terms of work. Every Saturday or Sunday, we do it in terms of life. And so if we're looking at our calendar and we see these pockets of time that we're not needed in certain places and situations, what are you doing with that time? How are you commanding your time? So like for me, when it comes to work, it's rare that something gets added to my calendar for the next day, unless I'm adding it typically. And that's because somebody's asking for something, or like I'm finna set a meeting, or I'm deciding I'm going to the jail, or whatever the case may be. I'm looking at the calendar and I'm like, you know what? I got this time to get this thing done. I need to get it done. I'm plugging it in here. But it's rare that other people are adding things to my calendar with less than a day's notice. Honestly, for the most part, with less than 2 to 3 days notice. Normally they'll tell me if they're doing it or whatever. And so on Fridays, for example, like when I'm making my plan, making my calendar for the week, I know, even when it comes to me getting home and picking out my clothes for the week, like what's on my calendar? How many days do I need to be dressed for court? Like suit, jacket, all of that. Versus a jail day, an office day, maybe even a travel to Orlando day, or hey, my work from home day. And so, for example, when I look at last week, my calendar for this week says like ask before scheduling because I'm working on trial prepping. And so because of that, I literally have one day that I have court this week, and that's in Orlando for the case that I'm prepping for trial. And so I know that there's nothing on my calendar. And so I've already decided I'm locking myself, not literally locking myself. I'm closing the door. I'm going to be in my office. My sign is going to be on Do Not Disturb on my door. And I'm locking in and I'm getting to work on this trial prep so that I can. The goal, ideally, is that Monday through Wednesday, I focus heavily on trial prep so that when I go to Orlando on Thursday, I can check in with the client and go through everything that we have, and I can figure out what's missing. Because I still have this buffer week, because trial isn't for like 2 more weeks. I have this buffer week of next week where I do have some appointments. I do have a couple court things to where I can fill in any gaps that, based off the conversation that I have with the client, I can make sure that, hey, this might be missing. I might need this, whatever the case may be. And so if we are going to let our calendars run us, we still have to fight back on that calendar. We have to, like, not really let it run you. Understand where you're going to be being productive and where you're going to lock in. Like this week for me, the intention and the goal is to lock in and to be productive. I still have a couple things I need to do left on my March planning, and my goal is to get those done tomorrow before I even go on my walk, so that after my walk, and like I said, Monday through Wednesday, I can really just lock in on that. I know my priority. I technically have two, I guess you can say, priorities for this week in terms of work. Finish my March planning and make sure that's all solidified, and this trial prep. And so when I understand and I can identify what the priority is, and I know what I'm locking in on, and that everything else right now is just busyness, and that's not where I want to focus. And the same way that I do this at work, you can do this in life, you can do this in business as well. And so that's how you plan for the results that you want to have. Yes, it's going to involve effort. I'm not worrying about the effort. I'm trial prepping. Trial prepping involves a whole bunch of different moving pieces. It's okay. I'm planning for the results, because the result that I want to have is to have this trial basically ready to go, to where I'm just filling in some bits and pieces based off of conversation that are still yet to be had, based off of court on Thursday. And so let your structure both dictate to you what you're doing, i.e. what's the plan, how are we going to get the results, and as a result of it dictating what you are doing, by default it's going to also dictate to you what you're not doing. The reason you feel behind every week is because you're reacting to your calendar instead of dictating to your calendar what's going on. You're just being busy. You're not being productive. But it's time to change that. It's time to shift that. And if you're listening to this, if you're watching this, if you're whatever, and you're like, you know what? I feel busy, but I don't really know that I'm being productive. Or even you say that you feel productive, but yet and still you're not progressing. Yeah, we need to book a productivity strategy session. You need to book a productivity strategy session, and let's have a conversation so we can rebuild your calendar around the results that you actually want to have, so that you don't just feel busy and you aren't just behind. You're structured, you have a game plan, and you're ready to lock in and get it done. So if that's something that you're looking for, comment below or send me a message. Let's have a conversation. We can click the link in the bio, whatever you want to do. But reach out, ask for help. Ask for the help that you need so that you can get the results that you want. Because if you really want those results that you say that you want, you're going to put in work, and you're going to do the work needed to get those results. That's what we got. So it's been Coach Lee, your productivity and accountability coach, here for another Sunday in Success Starting series here in the We Need to Talk. Lord, I think I'm on Clubhouse, and I'm not. Here for the Success Starter series, we dove in and we were talking about the real reason you're behind. And ultimately, it comes to your calendar and how you're being busy over being productive. So tap in, tune in. We'll be back next week. Same time, same place. Coach Lee is out.